Greetings. Angela Bixby here, coming to you live on this Wednesday, August 30th, the day of the blue moon. We've got a super moon later today. That's the second full moon in the month. It's the third of a series of 4 full moons, super moons, excuse me, in a row. So it's a pretty potent time. It's in Pisces, lots of things to look out there for, depending on what your natal chart says and how this might be hitting you and affecting you in those ways. Welcome. I'm Angela Bixby, coming to you here, as I do every week, to bring you a simple teaching to the best of my ability around psychic development and spiritual awakening. So I have some exciting news. Next week, the enrollment is opening for the Conscious Psychic Program. Enrollment will be open from Tuesday, September 5th through Saturday, September 23rd, the autumnal equinox. It'll be open for 18 days. So it is during this time that you're welcome to enroll in the Conscious Psychic Program. What we need to do, if that's something of interest to you, is I have a few quick questions for you. So I have a link that I'll drop below for an intuitive insight session with me. So basically you answer the questions. It's about 5 questions. And then I get that via email, and then via email, we set up a half-hour call together, that's no charge to you, where we're specifically talking about your psychic skills, where you are in your development, what you're looking for in your development, and the Conscious Psychic Program, and whether or not it's a right fit for you and whether you're a right fit for it. And so that's the process. It's answering some questions. It's jumping on the phone for a half hour and discussing these things so that you and I can make that decision. In terms of enrollment, once you know you're ready, it involves putting down a deposit, and then I'll get you out a welcome kit, welcome contract, all of those things, and we'll get your first session on the books. So that's opening next week. Next Wednesday, I'll talk more about the benefits of the program and some more of that on next week's live. That's what's hot this week, besides the weather, in terms of housekeeping issues that I wanted to bring to your attention. I hope everyone's staying grounded at this time. The energies have been really big this week with the astrology alone. I know this full moon's been affecting my sleep. I've been all over the board and my energy. It's felt good generally, but I have not been sleeping as much as I would like to. Thank you, Mother Moon, for that more awakening energy. Today, what I want to talk about is clairvoyance. So clairvoyance at its core and its root, and the French word clairvoyance, clair means clear, voyance means seeing. So it's essentially a French word, that talks about the psychic process of seeing. Now, you may or may not know this, but our clairvoyance comes through the same pathways that our imagination does. So while many people are often asking the question, and they're sort of in the obstacle of, is my mind creating this? Is my thoughts creating this? Is this my imagination, or is this my intuition? Part of the reason that's so confusing and that question comes up is because it comes through on the same pathways. Our brain does a lot of marvelous things. I do like to think of it a little bit more like a hard drive that's growing and being upgraded all the time. And when we're accessing psychic information, we're accessing fields, consciousness fields. That's my brief explanation of how we are psychic and how things come through. When we focus upon something, we're really almost its version of, if space and time applied in the psychic realms, which it doesn't so much, it doesn't as much as it does in this third dimension where we live. But if it applied, it would be similar to, like, even if you're focusing on something that you're seeing in your mind's eye, it's almost a version of drawing it closer. So see, I'm using a term that resides in space and physics versus metaphysics. So it's almost as though you're drawing it closer to look at it. So you are kind of pulling that field of information about that object that you're seeing into the filter of all of your perception, and especially in your brain and your heart and your all the other places in your nervous system, your gut, your sacral chakra, which is where, for a while that was seen as the most important brain. It's where we feel other people. So we have a number of different sort of nerve centers, if you will, or they could be seen as kind of like servers in our body for our central nervous system, if we want to stick with the technology or computer analogy, right? So we have these places, our heart, the base of our spine, and in our stomach, where we feel people, that lower stomach, as well as our brain. We have a bunch of different sort of servers in our central nervous system that are engaged and work with kind of scanning these fields and being in these fields. And some say, and in many situations, merging with these fields in order to discern and read the psychic information. So if you're someone that perhaps you're seeing a lot of signs and synchronicities, you're connected to all of this stuff, you're connected to metaphysics, you can feel energy sometimes, or maybe you have prophetic dreams, or maybe you've had visions, or you've heard dead people talk to you. Maybe you don't have any of that stuff quite yet, but say, for instance, you have really big dreams and you know yourself to be a visual thinker, and you're ready to kind of click on your clairvoyance, so to speak, and you're wondering why it's not coming through. First and foremost, remember that it comes along the same pathways as your imagination. And so if if you're able to visualize something, like for instance, if you're reading a book and you're sort of creating visual in your mind of what the author's saying, or if a friend is telling you a story and it's conjuring an image in your mind's eye, in your imagination, as you're taking in the story, maybe you're kind of looking at things and seeing it in your imagination, that's also your clairvoyance. So that's where you're wanting to look or pay attention, is the same way that you would be paying attention to kind of what's running through your head while someone's telling a story. Or if you're talking to somebody about memories from an event a while ago, you might be trying to picture it in your head. That's exactly how your clairvoyance comes in. So if you've got that capacity, which we really all do, you have the capacity to kind of shift on your clairvoyance. Now, one thing, I'm really oversimplifying this, because a huge component of being able to confidently and comfortably read and connect psychically is to understand kind of what stuff we have, what we're working with, right? Like, we might get anxious if we start to go read something or to try to tune into our clairvoyance, because we might get anxious because our stories can be coming up almost to try to create resistance to stop us, right? So our inner saboteur could be at play here. Trauma could be at play here. Things that still need to be healed, right? Anxiety could be at play. A lot of different things can be at play. And so it isn't exactly so simple. It can be for some people that you do a little bit of rubbing of your third eye, or you do the third eye activation meditation that I send out when you go on my email list, which is a whole kind of guided meditation to really kind of bring energy to that space. You could be doing Kundalini yoga practices where you're focusing on your third eye with your eyes. There are a lot of different ways you can do this: breath work, visualization, physical movement, qigong, etc. You could be doing a lot of different things like this to support your clairvoyance, but until you realize that it's coming through just similar to how your imagination does, a lot of people feel blocked and stuck. One of the biggest things that I watch happen with new students in the Conscious Psychic program is that they'll say, no, I don't see psychically. I sense this, I feel that. Every once in a while, I've awakened to hearing my name called, right? So it's like, I know that the clairvoyance is activated, but they just aren't aware yet that it's activated, or they're still doing some healing before it's actually going to come through for them to hear in that subtle way. Same thing with clairvoyance. So when people come into the program, it's really common. This is one of the most common things that happens with the students is something will click maybe a few weeks in or a few months in, and when they've been in development circles, and they'll say, I don't really feel like I'm seeing a lot. And I'll say, take your focus off of what you're seeing. And as you just let your mind kind of roll with what messages you're hearing for the person, what's coming up in your imagination. And I'll go, oh, well, I was seeing this and that. And I'm like, that's your clairvoyance. They're like, oh my gosh, those mind movies that I see every time my boss schedules a meeting with me. And I'm like, yes, that is your clairvoyance. The degree to which you are driving it with your imagination and it's coming in on your intuition is variable and questionable, but that is the pathway. And so a lot of times people are like, oh, I didn't realize that was my clairvoyance. People imagine that psychic skills are going to be super fantastic and high production value like the movies. It's not. It rarely is. Sometimes it is. For some people it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes we'll have peak experiences that are like that. I've had plenty of peak experiences with energy and psychic skills. But my day-to-day is I tend to see black and white and shades of gray. And when my guides show me color, it's really prominent. It's been that way since 2010. So yes, I have mind movies, but when I'm looking at holograms in the air at a professional session with a client, they tend to be more rudimentary. Sometimes they're more detailed. When I'm more relaxed and not looking at the holograms in the air and maybe looking at the mind movies that are running through my head, sometimes they're more color. But point being, it's incredibly, exceedingly rare that you're going to have a full-scale apparition standing in front of you, full on color, talking to you like it's a person and it's a dead person or a spirit guide. So often people expect the fantastical, and so they miss the subtle, that it actually, the reality of our psychic skills and all of this stuff is happening not only in our subtle energy body in the subtle realms, but it's very, very subtle, right? So there's a fine line with all of your psychic skills, but certainly your clairvoyance, with trying and not trying too hard. And you really want to try to skate that nuance. So one of the things that I have my students do in development circles, which I run 6 a week, practice is one of the biggest things you can do to further your psychic skills. So in my program, if it feels right for you, you get plenty and plenty of practice, because I offer 6 development circles a week that you're able to attend. It's all online, it's all Zoom audio. We don't use our cameras, so that we don't bring people Zoom fatigue, but also because then people can be more comfortable. They're not self-conscious about what they look like on camera. And also people aren't using obvious visual clues that they're seeing about their peers. They really have to go deeper into their psychic skills. So practice is going to help you with this. And it's more than just flicking a switch in your brain or rubbing your third eye and having it turn on and come online. Practice is a big part of the process, like anything that you would learn, any skill that you would learn, a lot of practice. The more hours of practice, the closer you get to mastery, right? So it's just, that doesn't change with the psychic process. But a lot of times what I'll say to my students, especially when they're newer, if they're feeling like they're not really seeing anything, but they may be perceiving in other ways, is I encourage everyone to have a notebook and a pen or pencil, or I use colored pencils for circles, but I'll encourage them to doodle. And so while it's kind of quiet and we're sitting in each person's segment, I'll say, just doodle, just kind of, I've already encouraged them by way of the meditation and the guidance as the mentor to drop their energy out of their heads and into their hearts and bodies. But when you're doodling, you're kind of doing that, right? You're sort of just letting your mind run free more. And your focus might be a little bit on the color that you're using or the design that you're doodling. When they do that, all of a sudden they have psychic things coming in. So that can be a really helpful tool for kind of how to come out of the hyper focus on your psychic skills when you're practicing them. The other thing I'll bring up about that doodling bit is, any of you that watches Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium, love him. He's such a beautiful and sweet young medium. He does such a great job in Medium to the Stars. But if you've watched him at all, you'll see that he scribbles on a pad of paper when he starts his sessions. Sometimes he might write a name or whatever, but he scribbles. What that does is it helps by the physical act of holding a pen or a pencil and paper. It's different than what we're all used to with being on screens and typing on keyboards. It brings us back to sort of more that primal connection to our brain in a lot of ways, because of all of the reasons, but it also engages both hemispheres of our brain differently than, say, typing on a keyboard would, which can then start to kind of like rev up the psychic engines to get things flowing. And so I encourage people to do that kind of a thing when we're in development circle as well. It's a place to put your focus. It's a place to lightly and mildly engage your brain and then allow the messages to come through. If you've been in a yoga class or a meditation class and you've heard the term monkey mind, what they're referring to when they refer to our mind as a monkey mind is that our mind is always going. So it's a good idea if you give your monkey mind a banana, right? If you give it something to do. And so offering for your brain or engaging your body and your brain to doodle is similar to giving your monkey mind a banana, right? It gives it something to do and to focus on so that you can kind of then, the rest of your faculties can access those psychic fields and start to kind of make connections and receive messages and be in the process. So that's a little bit on clairvoyance and how to kind of focus it, frame it intellectually in your mind, cognitively, in terms of how you view it, potentially practice it, potentially tune into what it is that you're seeing in your mind's eye. Now that you know that when your imagination is engaged by way of either listening to a story or reading a book or recounting memories with someone, when you're conjuring a vision in your mind, that is your clairvoyance, same pathways that your clairvoyance comes in on. And then remembering that it's really nuanced and subtle. So it's that skating and surfing that fine line between trying too hard and not trying too hard. All right. I hope everyone stays cool and safe as we head into this holiday weekend in North America, where I reside. We're coming up on a holiday weekend that kind of ends our summer unofficially. So I wish everyone a safe Labor Day weekend. Keep an eye out for next week's live, and I'll be opening up the enrollment to the Conscious Psychic program. There will be a discount offered off of the annual tuition. Not sure exactly what it is yet. I'm not going to reveal it yet either. Spirit's been talking to me a bit about it, but it'll become more clear this weekend, and then we'll launch into it Tuesday with the open enrollment period. If you've been looking at the Conscious Psychic program, if you're on the fence, if you would like to develop and you want to learn more about this, please, please, please schedule in a half-hour call with me. We can jump on the phone, talk about your skills, where you are, whether this program's right for you, whether you're right for the program, etc. There are the 2 steps of answering questions. If you want to skip the filling out the questions on my website, you can just go straight to scheduling the half-hour call. Just know that part of our time will be spent with you telling me kind of how things are coming through now, how you experience dreams, examples of when you've had your intuition come through. I do. I don't bring in like brand new spanking beginners. It's not that we're at an intermediate level, but having a perception that you're perceiving and receiving is important. It'll save a lot of time in the process. And so I work best with students that have a sense that they either want to be perceiving and they've maybe had some experiences throughout their life. Perhaps they had it really on when they were younger and they turned it off, which is really common. I tend to work better with people that have had some experiences. They don't have to be happening really consistently. You don't have to know how to use your intuition, but an awareness of your intuition and an awareness that you've had some energetic and spiritual and psychic experiences is really helpful to kind of allow you to have a better outcome when you jump into this. The program's mainly experiential with the 6 development circles per week. And so you're going to jump right into reading your peers in a circle environment with my mentorship and my guidance and all of that, and clearing the circle and holding the space and helping generate extra energy for you to develop. So being sort of a little more ready to develop in that regard is important. It's an important part of the process. All right. I hope this has been helpful, and I wish you all a wonderful rest of your days. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.